have to participate with me. Does that sound great? Okay, there we go. I want the energy up in the room. Okay, so let me just introduce very quickly the panelists. Sitting beside me is Hassan, founder and CEO of AI Explain. We'll talk a little bit about there. He is ex-AWS with me as well. Please give him a warm welcome. Okay, I think we can do better than that. Sitting beside him is Stephanie Buckner. She is the COO of a company called Altair. They've been doing AI for quite a long time. And if you haven't seen the news, they've announced a potential acquisition by Siemens for $11 billion. Welcome, Stephanie. And sitting beside Stephanie is Falong Quinn. He is the Vice President of Engineering at GMI, one of the sponsors of the event. So please give him a warm welcome. And then finally, last but not least, you want to get your picture with Ray Wang. He is the founder and CEO of Constellation, but you've probably seen him. He does almost daily updates on CNBC, Fox Business News, Bloomberg, etc. Welcome to Ray. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Now, just some facts to get us started. Did you guys know that 77% of companies said they're exploring LLMs right now for use in their company for production? The Gen AI market is expected to be $1.3 trillion, not billion, trillion dollars by 2030. And 90% of enterprises said that they will use Gen AI in 2025. So I think those are some phenomenal numbers. But Ray is our expert on research. So Ray, tell us, what do you see as the top trends in this space? And if you can, maybe one or two unexpected ones.
Oh yeah, okay. Happy to do that. How many people here actually take something like Otter and run it on your meeting so you don't have to listen to them? Anyone do that? That actually is, when we look at the research, the most practical future of work thing that people are doing, because they don't want to listen to their boss and they just want to record the meeting and do work while they're at work. But meeting avoidance is actually number one. But there are other amazing issues that are either being used, right? So procurement and any kind of legal contracts, we're seeing that pick up really quickly because there's only so much you can do with a legal intern to go find case law, see what's happening. We're definitely seeing customer experience, the ability to do deflection or the ability to improve self-service using agents to personify what people are doing. We're also seeing it in terms of your ability for HR, in terms of interviews and screenings for anything from regulatory requirements, like do you have the right set of candidates? Do you have the right set of pools? Are you doing inclusion properly? Those are popping up as well. And then of course, code gen is number one by far. Right? People are building code. What might have taken you a year to do is going to take you a month to do. What might have taken you a month to do, some people are doing it in 2 days. That's the level of what's going on. And if you're a CS major that's graduating this year, I really apologize because you probably will be unemployed. Right? So we're going to see stuff like that pop up. Now, the surprising piece that people, the last one actually is the creative sides. You've seen how much power it is to be able to create music or look at arts, looking at the ability to look at a whole set of portfolio changes, things that you're able to do. Most important, if you're doing a global campaign, it would take you 5 weeks to actually get each country up and going. It'll take you 5 weeks to get all of them up and done. And so it's a speed thing. It's this notion that we call exponential efficiency and enterprise acceleration. Those two things are happening at the same time. The surprise use.
Tell us.
I think it's going to be
here at CES. Give us a surprise.
It's really the way people are punking people with different types of videos. Unintentional misinformation, sometimes intentional. I think that's the surprise use, but the ability to detect that on the other end is now the surprise use, because you're using AI to fight AI, and you're going to see more of that come up.
Awesome, thank you, Ray. And those insights I think are interesting because they come from Ray's research, where he works with thousands of companies, not just vendors, but end users as well, which I think gives Constellation a leg up on a lot of the other analyst companies out there. So Stephanie, Altair has been doing AI since before AI was really popular and sexy. So tell us what you're seeing out there from an Altair perspective. What kind of usage do you see with LLMs or Gen AI?
Yeah, absolutely. So a large number of our customers are really exploring and engaging, and every company's at sort of a different stage in their AI journey, I will say. a huge concern that is popping up right now for our customer base is around control. And what I mean by that is governance. So now the LLM concept allows for huge transfer of information, but you have to make sure that the right employees can access the right information still. So that's a really core piece of what we focused on. And then in addition, you've got hallucination. And when you're really looking at using LLMs in production, hallucination is absolutely something you cannot tolerate. And so there are many ways around it, particularly using technology such as the RapidMiner platform with the graph-based, the knowledge graph technology. And so that's really core. But what I would say actually, when I'm hearing from customers, what is our number one challenge around AI and LLMs? It's actually about transformation. And what they mean by that is the concern all of their employees have around the lack of future job, that I'm now creating something that will take my job, and what is that gonna mean for me in the future? And the reality is many of the skill sets today, as Ray was talking about, are not gonna be needed, but there will be new skill sets needed. I'm not somebody that believes every single role in an organization is gonna be completely obsolete with AI, but I do think that the roles that we have today will dramatically transform into the future.
I think those are great points. You know, I have two daughters. I have one getting ready to go to college and one in college. And they are talking about that a lot now at the university. And in fact, hallucinations come up. In one of the classes, my daughter was given the opportunity to do research with a couple of the Gen AI tools like Claude and ChatGPT. And she found that in one of her pieces of research, all three of the references, even though they gave a book, page number, person to quote, none of those were actually real. So you do have to be really careful. So those are really, really great points. Doreen, I know that GMI works really closely with a lot of engineering leaders out there. So they're going to be really interested in hearing about the patterns that you're seeing and what's really transforming this space out there.
Yes. So we work with a lot of enterprises, and we see typical phases. That also depends on how digitalized each enterprise is at this current phase. But one typical thing we saw is they usually give us 5 to 6 bullet points, as if they want to fire like 50% of the company, but doubling their revenue. This is very common. Like they want to do this, they want to do that, like 6 to 7 goals. But they will soon realize this is not the case. And they then fall around to their engineering department saying what we can do at this point. And they usually starting with some small, low risk but high revenue or high ROI projects, which is a very good thing to start. And then they will stall on a deeper integration side, like how we can deal with the data compliance issue. Now that we've tried some prompt using OpenAI or cloud, how should we proceed with our own data? And how can we get more compute resource, you know? Inferencing the new models is very costly these days. And especially if you use like high-end models these days, like some enterprise even ask specifically, for example, for Llama 405B or DeepSeek, which requires a huge amount of money to run on. And then that's where, for example, platforms like GMI Cloud will kick in to help them, for example, build their private clusters or do some on-prem deployment to further help them facilitate their end goals, for example, do the rest of the 5 or 6 bullet points. So this is what I see from what they're doing versus what they plan to do. Of course, there's data issue, there's data compliance issue, how to handle data PIIs, how to do data encryptions. So there is a long, long list for them to run through. And for companies with a good start, for example, if they already have a unified data layers, like a data lake, congratulations, they're off to a good start. Of course, we've also seen some companies are still not very mature when it comes to digitalization. So our recommendation would be try to start small. Try to find the data or database that has the best quality in that domain, or that's most consistent to start with.
Interesting. So can you tell us, like, if you had to look at all those 5 bullets that everybody's giving you, what's the number 1 bullet that you see over and over again?
Oh yeah, the number 1 bullet is always like some kind of copilot workflow. If it's working on, for example, software and hardware, that's pretty obvious, and it's been proven use case that works. For example, customer services or other TB business, they have this human-in-the-loop chatbot that's also very popular. So these two, I think, are currently the most mature use cases we've seen so far. But they want to build other stuff like enterprise RAG, knowledge-based Q&A, which will also require deeper integration into their data.
Interesting. So, implementation really separates leaders from laggards, and how you actually execute, not just how you plan, but how you actually execute as well. So moving to production sometimes is the big challenge, even though you've had a small success. I know, Hassan, that you guys are working on a lot of really interesting things at AI Explain, even making coders, implementers, that are not typically coders like myself, right? Someone with go-to-market skills. So can you talk us through some of what you're doing and some of what you have in your architecture or your infrastructure that's crucial for everyone out here to know about?
Yeah, thank you, Sandy. So yeah, I do AI since, is the microphone working?
Yeah,
Yes,
there you go.
perfect. So I do AI since '92, and I have seen a lot of.
Wow, wait, did you say 1992?
1992.
Wow, okay.
My first language model was 95. My first agent, as we describe it today, in 2015. So the concepts which we are dealing with are not as new as we might think, but they are more ready because of the environment. Compute is ready, data is ready, people have a better understanding of where to use. I mean, this is definitely something to be said about ChatGPT when it came and educated basically millions and millions of people which were like distant to AI. Now, I was at AWS. We were building cool technology. It was an excellent experience. 20 startups within 3.5 years at AWS. That was, for me personally, a great experience. But we were actually addressing the engineer mainly, right? I mean, we wanted to enable them to basically put things into their hands. And our reason why we started Explain is, what about the 95% of the world? We need to enable them. We need to give them tools into their hands to build capabilities similar to what an engineer would be doing. To be able to do that, we have multiple challenges which need to be addressed. One is, we as AI scientists, we know what RAG is, we know what LLM is, we know what signal processing is, so we know basically how to put these things together so that they can work a certain way. Maybe one model can do it all at once, but typically not. So to solve that problem, we built basically our own agent, LSP, to take basically a conversation from an executive into an architecture of solutions using multiple models right there and so forth. So now a chief claims officer can actually immediately converse with the chatbot experience and build a solution, build an agent, just by conversing, just by telling it what is the pain point, where do I need to do, what do I need, what kind of data do I have, etc., etc. Now, so building the solution is an important component, but like Stephanie has actually earlier mentioned, this is not the only thing you need to do to take basically a solution. I mean, at that point, you just have a demo, just a prototype. It's not really deployable because you don't have the guardrails, you don't have the data security, you don't know what's going to happen when an algorithm does something and potentially is biased or something like that. So you need to build technologies to help you with that. We implemented things what we call, micro agents, we call them bodyguards, managing data access, and so forth. we build micro agents which are called inspectors, paying attention to what is a certain policy being heard, for example? Does the data need to be comply with HIPAA or something like that? Sometimes a solution will recruit out of 40,000 of existing agents and explain the multiple inspectors. One is HIPAA, one is SOC 2, one is, I don't know, maybe something which generates content which is feasible to be shown to a 7-year-old, etc., etc. And building these kind of capabilities is what we are enabling our users to do. So we're trying to reduce the, it's getting more and more confusing. The more we are continuing this AI journey, the more confusing it is. For me, as a long timer in AI, it's not easy anymore to say, I don't know what models are coming on a daily basis. There's new LLMs coming. Which one to choose is hard. Let the AI help us to figure out what AI to use. So this is what
Interesting. I think I need a bodyguard too. I think that's really cool. And so this trend of looking at non-coders starting to code, do you see that, Ray, as something that people are talking about, what Hassan is working on?
Oh yeah, we're definitely going to see like 10 less coders. You're going to see definitely people jump in and just describe business descriptions, right? The point of AI is not more AI. The point of AI is to make better decisions. And what's going to happen over time is you're going to draw decision maps, and you're going to say, that's not where I want to automate. You're actually going to say a different question. You're going to say, this is where I want to insert a human to change the process. And that's really going to change the way you look at how you automate decisions, because that's really the goal of AI in the end, is automating as many decisions as you can. And then back to production ready, the question you're going to ask is, who do you sue when something goes wrong, right? Very, very important, because that's where you're going to jump in. So you're not production ready until you can answer that question. And sometimes that means a human has to be there, or another body has to be there to assume liability. So you'll see that. Back on the implementation thing, I think that's really important is LLMs, if I told you my LLM is 85% accurate for customer experience, would people feel good here? Raise your hand if you feel good. It's not bad, right? But what about 85% for supply chain? Anyone up for that? No, right? It's $1 million lost per minute. What about 85% accuracy for finance? Anyone? Anybody want to go to jail? All right, what about 85% accuracy for healthcare? Anyone in? Okay, so that's the challenge, right? And so the other part that's really important is to make sure you partner for data. So we're going to see data collectors emerge. And these data collectors basically play a role in terms of sharing information they're going to give and get. And one of the things that you don't realize is we keep talking about the battle for LLMs, and that's a really cool battle, and we can go into that so deep. But your data sets are going to be just as important, because the next 15%, right, that 10% and then the next 5% is equally valuable. So don't give away your data, because it's going to be used somewhere else, because we're competing for precision decisions. And if you can get to 99%, that means less humans involved in that process. If you're at 85%, there's a lot more humans in that process. And so that level of precision means we need more data sources. And so that partnership becomes important.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was just talking actually to Fei, and she was telling me that everybody thinks that it's going to be LLMs that either determine success or failure. It is going to be around your data. And Stephanie, I know at Altair, you guys have been working on helping customers by industry, looking at data models, looking at compute models to scale. So what lessons would you give the audience on data compute at scale?
Yeah, at the end of the day, you don't want one AI model. You're gonna want hundreds of thousands at the end. And that becomes a big challenge when you're in production and everything needs to work not just at 85%. And so for us, on the Altair side, we have deep expertise on the high performance computing, and we're the #1 player for workload and workflow scheduling. And so our technology is on the largest computers in the world today, the exascale computers. And we're leveraging this expertise really and applying it into our AI operations and our AI platform. But scalability is one of the major concerns that really comes out as a customer progresses through their journey. To begin, it always starts more on the data side of, I need to have the right data. And that's really complicated for customers today because most customers, their data is segmented into different silos. You've got an ERP, you've got a PLM, you've got, you know, all these different silos of data that are not necessarily connected. You may have dumped them into a data lake, but that doesn't actually create the relationships that are needed across those different silos. And so the data aspect becomes even more important into the future. And one of the core concepts that Altair focuses on is a data fabric, an AI fabric. And this is really creating that layer over top of those different data silos because, as Ray was talking about, you're gonna have data, whether it's your own data or outside data that's coming in, that's needed to help train the models, but also to give responses in real time on different actions, sensors, things like that that are happening. And so, you know, it's really gonna be, I think, one of the most important and critical aspects. Most people are always thinking about AI modeling and how do I get my models out into operation, but that's sort of the second step. You have to start with the right data.
Absolutely, data, data, data. But there is one other thing besides data, which is integration. How many of you out there have to integrate these solutions into what you're doing? Or are all of you guys startups? No? Okay, most people here have to integrate. So you mean, talk to us a little bit about integration, because integration can sometimes be the Achilles heel in a solution for AI.
Exactly. Especially when you're given this black box of large language models. People usually just, oh no, how should I integrate into our business, right? I know how to type in and receive the response, but what about our existing workflow? I think that's the most asked questions for established business at these days. So from an engineering perspective, we will say, don't be afraid of the existing frameworks. I know, like, if you live in San Francisco, you'll probably be dragged into different kind of hackathons and see like 7 to 10 different AI frameworks every week. That's where like expertise is needed. Like, you need to pick the right expertise to, as a consultant, to tell you what kind of framework is needed to suit your actual use case. For example, somebody have their own data lakes already established on Databricks, then it's probably fairly easy to streamline everything into this, what we call an LLM Ops framework. If they're still not in this kind of a data lake process, then we can figure out where the data sits right now, what kind of compliance they need to follow, what about data privacies, how sensitive they are, and most importantly, we need to see the thing as a pipeline, not just a snapshot. Because like Stephanie had mentioned, model training is just one thing. The most important is how you manage your actual data flow, and most important is how this data flow would flow into your business, and in the end, be integrated by different components. For example, agent is one of the most debated or discussed topic these days. So my take is, don't be afraid of starting using a framework. I know there is a debate between framework or no framework. Somebody says no framework is the best engineering practice. Somebody says, oh, just use a framework. So our recommendation is try both. Just try using a framework and establish a framework to prototype your business pain point or your business needs. And then you will figure out what you need and what's lacking. So don't be afraid to try. That's my take.
So we've been talking a lot about the technology today, but I'm a Forbes contributor and I wrote an article on ROI for AI. It was one of my top rated articles because everybody now is moving into, I have to prove to my boss that this is not just cool, it's not just AI, but it actually delivers a measurable business outcome. So Ray, I'm gonna go first to you because I know you've recently done some research here on what are the elements that cause a project to be ROI positive, to be successful, and what are the things that these folks could watch out for that might deter from that ROI mission?
Yeah, no, Sandy, everybody wants to know what the payback is, and if you think about what happened last year, and we basically robbed budgets to pay for AI, right? You saw it all across the board, like your marketing budget got robbed, your cybersecurity budget got robbed, and people were trying to pay for all these AI innovations. And then the question was really, did anybody succeed? And we saw about 15 to 17% of POCs, proof of concepts, succeed. But the companies that did succeed there were able to see a lot of gains. I'll give you a great example. We were interviewing the CEO of Sam's Club on stage at our AF Forum, and basically he goes, we got rid of 10 million tasks, right? And the next thing you would think is like, yeah, we also got rid of X number of people, right? That's probably what you would think. But instead, he actually said, we actually added 3% more frontline workers because we needed a human touch, right? So you're starting to see that type of ROI. If you're looking for the next AI stocks to invest in, it's not the NVIDIAs of the world, it's the companies that are putting AI to work. So if you look at what Uber did, you only got a certain number of drivers, and they can only drive a certain number of days, but what they did was they took their data science and their machine learning capabilities and figured out how to do ride batching, putting more people into the car, right? And able to actually figure out how to do dynamic pricing on the back end. And those two things means the driver gets more rides or more fares, and of course Uber takes their cut, but you get the idea. They can then build against that. So we're starting to see this happen in places, and you're going to see more and more companies that actually have that data foundation improve personalization, which means maybe they're more loyal, which means you're going to buy more from them. Or they can figure out at-risk employees who might be leaving and understand, hey, what are the factors behind that? Well, their boss left, or their best friends have left, right? Okay, that's going to create a cascading effect. Let's go do something to actually improve retention, because hiring people is not fun, nor is it cheap. So you'll see more examples like that.
I love the research that Ray did, because he gave kind of 3 core things that he saw from successful projects. Let me see if I get this right. One was that the people in the company viewed it not as an AI project, but as a business project. So it wasn't, I'm going to do this cool LLM, or I'm going to do this Gen AI thing. It's, I'm going to improve my supply chain. I'm going to do something around the business. The second one was data. They had the right data. They knew the data that they needed as they were going to move forward, because this would help them to ensure that they didn't reach that 85% point, that they reached even further. And then the third one that I saw that Ray talked about from his research was start small. A lot of the companies, because you said 15 to 17% were successful. A lot of those who were not successful started really big. They started to accomplish something that was huge, versus starting small, learning, and then moving on from that. Hassan, I know that you guys are looking at a lot of economics as well. Talk to me about what you're seeing in economics. I know you're working with some insurance companies, oil companies, et cetera. Talk to us about what you're seeing in terms of economics and ROI.
So we have this customer, which is an insurance company in Florida. They are actually, so homeowners insurance doing a great job with what they're doing on a day-to-day basis, but then the hurricane hits, and then suddenly their less than 100 human agents have to solve problems which are 10,000 people. The people cannot be at home, they cannot, they have big issues. I mean, it's a big impact. One of their executives came to explain and build basically an agent to augment the human agents with AI, so that an agent can now converse with a customer, take on the claim, figure out whether it is within a certain approvable budget, and then basically approve it right away without the human needing to be involved. And that includes asking the user or the policyholder to take pictures of the roof to identify how is the roof looking like, what material is it, how big is it, by taking information from, for example, satellite images and whatnot. The 75 agents turned into more agents, more than 100 agents, because I mean, while they were able to solve the majority, the belly of the distribution was actually be solved by the AI. Now the actual customer had more time, or the agent had more time to invest with the customers, which are outside the things the AI can actually solve. They saved a lot of money, millions and millions. I can't disclose how much, but I can tell you that the user experience increased dramatically from the 2.x to 4.x. I mean, out of a 5-point scale. So that was actually more important almost than the US dollar, which was actually gained as well. So winning on these two things. So I want to talk also about the data. Data, while it is great to have the right data to basically build these agents to have access to, they don't need to be in double quotes. We have learned over the 30 years, cleanliness can be done using AI as well. I mean, you can build an agent to learn on how to deal with your data, for example. It is the right data, meaning not how clean they are, but how much information is encoded in the data and whether it's going to be valuable to you. Is it accessible, etc., etc. So I have seen a lot of companies being concerned about their data being messy, and hence never started actually experimenting with AI, just because they felt, no, it needs to be all in databases and structured and this and that. This is not the way. This is not the bottleneck. The bottleneck is to have the right data to solve a certain problem. I thought
That's awesome, yeah. Don't wait, definitely get started for sure.
And start small.
And start small, that's great. Okay, so we've covered kind of what we see people doing today. We've covered how you might get started. We just have time for one more question that we're going to go through, which is, what do you see for the future? Yu-Ming, I'm going to start with you, and we're going to go through each and every person. What is one thing that you want everyone here to take away about the future of LLM and Gen AI?
One thing I want to say is there's always a trend. For example, for this year, agent might be the trend. Video generation might be a trend. But you gotta pick what actually works for your business. I think both the panelists have mentioned starting small. This is really good. I also want to add something is pay attention to how you set things up and your infrastructure. Because one thing to increase ROI, definitely, is by reducing the cost. Find the right infrastructure provider. Try different things, for example, that actually a smaller model rather than, for example, ChatGPT 01 or Cloud SolNet, that's very expensive. Maybe a small model can solve like 90% or 95% of your core problem. If there has to be something that you really pay attention, I would say for the near future, that will still be agent, because that is the thing that can solve, I would say, most of the established business problems. As an agent can really work like a real employee at this point, with some level of function call capability, the ability to read through documentations, and these knowledge are actually hidden within your own data. So my take is focus on an agent thing, pay more attention to your own data, and get a good infrastructure support.
Really good one. So for the future, AI agent as an employee, that's what I heard him say, and data. Okay, Steph, I'm going to go to you next.
Sure. So, I mean, the way I think about AI really is it can help reduce cost, but it also can help increase your revenue. And so I think it can be used in both directions, and I think it's important that you're looking at it. The other piece is there's been a lot of discussion on, is AI too hyped up? Is this really gonna be, is the value gonna be there in the future? What's that gonna look like? And my personal belief is that absolutely AI is gonna transform the world. I mean, this is something that there's no stepping back from as a complete society here. And so the sooner companies embrace and begin to move forward on that path, the better. I would recommend that you find a way to work with somebody who knows the space, has experience in it. There's a lot of really capable vendors out there, but I really think it's important you choose a partner who has done many of the mistakes and seen lots of the different examples in the past, rather than doing everything yourself from the very beginning. I've met with a number of customers who they will invest in giant data science teams, bringing on hundreds of people, just to come back and realize that actually my number one problem isn't creating AI models, or my ROI that I expected actually isn't gonna be there. And so I think it's super important, and we always try to focus on basically creating a heat map that shows you what's the value you're gonna extract versus how hard is it to implement and to get it into production. And so you're constantly going against that metric to see what the right next move should be.
Really good. So make sure you get started, don't wait, but start at the right place. So start with someone who understands your business so you can start at the right place. Hassan.
Yeah, I think what we should be doing is we need to turn even engineers into entrepreneurs. Think about the problem, the metric you want to optimize first. Make it start small. Don't start in solving the whole company's problem, and then start building startups, start companies, and companies can actually be companies of agents. So we heard about crews of agents, we heard about swarms of agents. Start with building companies of agents. Start recruiting the right agents to solve your problem. You don't need to think about LLM anymore. You can actually start recruiting existing agents, specializing them, and then start from there. And experiment, because the rate of innovation is linearly correlated with the rate of experimentation. The more you can experiment, the more you're going to be innovative. The more you're going to wait, the more you're going to be, unfortunately, behind. That's my suggestion.
I like that. So Hassan and I worked at Amazon Web Services together, and that's what we did as part of our secret of success. We just kept replicating, creating startups. Okay, Ray.
Well, I think I was going to start with time is of the essence, but actually I'm going to take a much more critical conversation. In the age of the internet, things were decentralized, they were open, they were cheaper, there were lots of competition. Age of AI is completely different. We are closed, we are centralized, things are more expensive, and there are few players. If you want to break that, I'm going to ask you guys to do something very important. We're going to have to fight for rights in terms of public knowledge on what an LLM is. So just like we have copyright and patent law on ideas, the insights in an LLM might have a 10-second expiration date, a 1-minute expiration date, an hour expiration date, a day expiration date. You get it, right? Because there's so much public knowledge that's being locked into the few hands of individual companies that you're going to see a demand for all that information and insight to be shared and brokered, and we're going to actually completely change the patent and copyright law. And I think that's what we're going to have to fight for if we want to have AI in the hands of everybody's space, because at the rate we're going right now, it's not going to be cheap, it's not going to be easily accessible, and only a few people have access to it. So maybe it's something to fight for, starting here at CES.
Awesome. So I'll just close with this story, and this is a true story. Yesterday I was walking down the strip, and I looked down and there was a bottle on the street. So I reached down and I picked it up, and I rubbed it, and out popped a genie. True story, by the way. And this genie said to me, Sandy, this is your lucky day. Not only do you get to be on the Modev AI House panel, but you also get 3 wishes. However, with those wishes, there's a catch. There's always a catch, isn't there? So I said, okay, what's the catch? And he said, well, whatever you wish for, your evil arch enemy gets double. I said, okay, I'll do that. So first I wished for a red Tesla. I wanted a Cybertruck. So he said, poof, you get a red Tesla, but your evil arch enemy gets 2. So the second thing I wished for is a house at the beach, because I love the beach. I got this beautiful house at the beach, but poof, my evil arch enemy got 2. So for my final wish, I said, Genie, would you scare me half to death? Now, I want to end this panel by not scaring you half to death, but by giving you 3 wishes that this magnificent panel, Ray, Ping, Stephanie, and Hassan delivered to you. 3 wishes. 1, start, but start small. 2, data. You need to make sure that you're looking at your data. And 3, know that AI is going to encompass everything out there. So don't just get your engineers involved in what you're working on. Make sure that ROI project involves the business too. Thank you guys so much. Make sure you talk to these wonderful folks.